Academy of Self series is titled Harmony is Freedom, yet freedom is not free, which means we must learn to count the cost of every choice and every chance if we are to ever establish real harmony. By Gordon Gardner. We human beings must understand that life does not work for us nor against us, but we must each cooperate with its source if we are to live harmonious lives. Real harmony means agreement in action, while our inner authority is coinciding at all points with our environmental conditions. In fact, is the only authority over those very same conditions, inasmuch as within ourselves abides the solitary basis for whatever harmony we are able to gain. It is equally true that there dwells in us the only ground for complaint if harmony eludes us. In order to experience the secure order of total harmony, the dweller on the threshold of the conscious mind, which gives rise to dissension and therefore disharmony, must be completely dissolved. The dweller that incessantly disturbs the natural order is the ego self of personality, which is nothing but a fabrication of the mortal mind with its deadly emotions and lethal intellect, working against the inner authority of the higher self. We must each in our turn listen to the will and act with the power of this inner authority, and completely ignore the willfulness of the ego self with its powerless personality. The ego self of personality has no character, and in fact has no reality of its own, but is an energy vampire and an inner parasite which lives off of the human potential for greatness, and leaves the person an empty victim to fate. All that the ego self of personality is a malevolent arbiter of fate as a forerunner of eventual conflict and inevitable chaos. The natural condition and spiritual state of an awakened humanity would be a harmonious balance between the real and the ideal, and yet this circumstance has not transpired. The prerequisite for relative harmony in the life of each individual and total harmony amongst the whole of humanity is the creative principle of cooperativeness. This simply requires that each individual human being develop an undisturbed cooperative intercommunication with the inner authority as the actual indwelling source of real harmony. And then only will the real and the ideal be in coordination with the natural spiritual rhythm which pervades heaven and earth. Once awakened persons realize that harmony is an individual proposition gained by way of cooperation with the inner authority, they cease to expect it as a human right and recognize it as a human need which must be established from within. To come into full coordination with one's own awakened inner authority is to establish a natural spiritual rhythm with the ordered universe, and the establishment of this rhythm is the sole obligation of each person. This means that we human beings must, by our own effort, develop the ability to respond to the inner authority, and for that alone we are responsible if harmony is to be attained. We each, however, must know that it is the still voice of the inner authority that is impressing its will upon our hearts, and not the ego self of personality forcing its willfulness upon our limiting emotions through our limited intellect. In other words, if we are able to respond to all of life's essential vicissitudes with an exemplary disposition, we are responding to the still voice within our heart. If, however, we are not able to respond in this manner, but react instead with ill humor, we are being manipulated by the insane ego self living in our head. The following death-dealing reactions to life are the insane shortcomings within the mortal mind in bondage to the ego self of personality, because they kill the true character of the individual. 1. Fear, meaning false evidence appearing real. 2. Guilt, meaning conflict between right and wrong. 3. abomination, meaning an intense dislike for another. 4. Pretense, meaning pretending to be what one is not. Desire, meaning to yearn for things not present. 6. Extravagance, meaning going beyond reasonable limits. 7. Jealousy, meaning desiring another's possessions. 8. Resentment, meaning an indignant reaction to imagined wrong. 9. Cupidity, meaning intense desire for what is not ours. 10. Indolence, meaning a devitalized condition due to overindulgence. These 10 debilitating emotional intellectual weaknesses are the direct result of not being fully connected with the inner authority. 3 or less of these reactions suggest a random disconnect from the inner authority, which requires a more intense form of introspection in order to strengthen the contact by dislodging the lingering weaknesses. If harmony is not to be haphazard, an intense feeling of at-one-ment must be established and upheld within consciousness, inasmuch as disharmony is the unconscious state of the ego self. Real harmony is the carefree state of any realized soul, and if nothing else, is the willingness to carry out the orderly directives coming from the inner authority, which is attuned to and at one with the ordered universe. Religion, therefore, is nothing more than the willingness to listen to the will of the inner authority and to act with the power bestowed upon the receptive person by the ordered universe. It needs no traditions, creeds, dogmas, and doctrines which prevents a simple coordination between the sacred human nature and the divine human spirit. The religiosity of churchianity is no more than an emotional intellectual plague which has plagued its gullible adherents since the fabrication of confusing and diametrically opposed sectarian doctrines. All the indoctrinated adherents to sectarianism, regardless of the culture from which the sect originates, have been systematically fleeced of the one human right, the right to their unrestricted, authoritative individuality. The good shepherds in clerics' clothing have also robbed these insipid sheep of any opportunity to originate, inasmuch as the sheep are all cloned from one pattern, based on blind faith, vapid hope, and loveless charity. The authoritarian, dictatorial, pharisaical church hierarchies have, by way of despotic clericalism, held an excessive influence upon the reactive minds of the populace, from the heads of state down to, and especially, the common people who make up the masses. And from the other direction comes the technocratic influence of science, which broke away from religious dogma and developed an empirical dogma of its own, which controls the state and mesmerizes the populace with its implausible paradigms that never seem to hold water for too long a period. It is true, as Oscar Wilde stated, that consistency is the last refuge of the unimaginative, but since science only approves of the cold, calculating, unimaginative intellect, instability is the scientific contribution to the human endeavor. The government of the people, and therefore the people themselves, is a catch-22 situation because of the church and science competing for control over the state. The dire result is the out-of-order established order of a church-state-science fabricated dilemma, rather than the ready-made order of love, wisdom, truth, with its horn of plenty and its great abundance of real harmony flowing from the inner authority. Real persons do not need to be wet-nursed by the church, state, science, medical, psychiatric administrations, as long as they accept wholeheartedly the honest-to-goodness, tender, loving care of the inner authority. In order to be sound of mind, a person must be wholehearted, which does not mean tender-hearted. Wholeheartedness, in the sense meant here, is a sincere earnestness on the intuitive plane, with the benefit of spiritual integrity as an infallible guide. The limitation and ignorance suffered by those who fall under the influence of tender-heartedness are always in the grip of an impulsive need to do good, which is the emotional level without even the benefit of the sometimes useful intellect. Emotions are the 10 death-dealing reactions to life spoken of earlier, and the rational intellect sanctions their weaknesses. At a deeper feeling level, the natural spiritual integrity of the inner authority reveals the 10 life-giving responses to living. These are the sound recommendations of the higher mind, free from the destructive ego self of personality, and they express the true character of an unrestricted individuality. They are: 1. Love, meaning unconditional and beyond motive. 2. Wisdom, meaning divine intervention. 3. Truth, meaning eternal and not ephemeral. 4. Unpretentiousness, meaning nothing to hide. 5. Generosity, meaning sharing wisely. 6. Moderation, meaning in all things beneficial. 7. Wholeheartedness, meaning a pure heart. 8. Contentment, meaning no longer reacting. 9. Trustworthiness, meaning reliable character. 10. Perseverance, meaning never disappointed. The liberation of illumination comes with these particular 10 life-giving responses to living only if real love is penetrated by real truth, so that real wisdom can be conceived by the receptive and pure heart of an awakened person. The only choice any of us human beings have is whether to live in accord with the 10 death-dealing reactions to life or in harmony with the 10 life-giving responses to living. The first choice will result in a vicious circle of anxiety on a misery-go-round of chronic worry. The sound choice, however, will bring with it an ever-spiraling, illuminating awareness of happiness, joy, euphoria, rapture, ecstasy, delight, and bliss as the natural spiritual rhythm of real harmony. Harmony is freedom, yet freedom is not free, inasmuch as it will empty your mind of all those cherished ideas, ideologies, beliefs, concepts, opinions, assumptions, conclusions, and any other inharmonious superficial mental attachment adhered to by the ego self. Real harmony means real peace of mind, which is a realistic composure of mind regardless of life's essential vicissitudes, which do not cause distressful tension to any awakened person. An alert person responds with the accurate discernment that comes with unerring physical instinct. An aware person responds also with instinct, but in addition with the precision awareness that comes with fail-safe mental intuition. An awakened person, however, has both instinct and intuition, but more essential, such persons have an equitable understanding inasmuch as they will respond with a natural spiritual integrity from the inner authority which is infallible. To educate means to draw out, bring forward, or lead out, which is a natural spiritual process that can transpire without formal schooling. A truly educated person is not necessarily the result of formal schooling, nor can its absence interfere with the innate creative genius. The geniuses of the world were and are quite often lacking in so-called formal education, but their innate genius was and is brought forward by the circumstances and proper nurturing, meaning they were not tampered with too much. An acorn does not need to be taught to become a mighty oak tree. All that is needed is that the right circumstances and proper nurturing, and nature takes its course. Genius is always in a state of eternal delight, in a perpetual condition of natural optimistic wonder, without worry, to mar the person's loving encounter with each moment of eternity. The great poet and genius Gord spoke of the necessary death of the ego because, as long as you do not know how to die and come to life again, you are but a sorry traveler on this dark earth. The brain-mind of genius is always active in the eternal now, in a state of unification with the cosmos. It requires an interconnectedness between the sensual conscious mind, brain, of an unrestricted individuality to be bound back to the spiritual superconscious mind of the ordered universe, which is bound fast to the celestial consciousness of the cosmos, before genius can begin to unfold. All that is needed to make this possible is that the individual gets right out of his mind and comes to his here-now senses. A mind that is wandering into past memories and future anticipations cannot become attuned to the universal mind, and therefore cannot be at one with the all-pervading consciousness of the cosmos. Genius requires the whole brain of an integral person, the unadulterated mind of the ordered universe, and the entire consciousness of the consummate cosmos to be in juxtaposition. This means that there is a material, spiritual, celestial correspondence which coincides at all points of awareness, wherein the three basic ones are instinct, intuition, integrity, within a fully autonomous person. These three, of course, represent the love, wisdom, truth triune as the most essential of the 10 life-giving responses, which are the inherent essence of the person's nature, mind, spirit, that in turn is the innate substance of the person's physical body. There is nothing complex about this, since it is simply the natural spiritual rhythm of the cosmos in action. Genius is really no more than an equipoised mind, harmoniously balanced between the immensity of that which is known and the infinity of that which is unknown, with nothing on it but peace. The higher self, at one with the higher mind, is a transcendental presence which permeates all of the levels of awareness within a consummate human being. This completed state results in the brain-mind-cosmos interconnectedness required for establishing the genius of an integral person. These integral persons are each a master of destiny, their own, of course, and no one else's. Inasmuch as these realized souls never attempt to lead, they do not want and therefore do not seek disciples, yet they will reveal to anyone who approaches them for metaphysical direction the method they used for transcending the physical limitation. The metaphysical reality is simply awareness vibrating on a higher level of cognition due to a greater use of brain power until it becomes a reservoir for the consciousness of the cosmos. Genius is therefore simply a greater awareness of the higher realities by way of expanding the individual awareness through intense pondering, deep introspection, profound meditation, until an unencumbered comprehension of a particular subject is attained. This requires an unobstructed mind and an unprejudiced heart, which means the beginner's mind of a Buddha and the pure heart of a Christ. These traits are rarely found amongst Buddhists and never found amongst Christians, because the minds of the former are encumbered with the many doctrines of Buddhism, and the hearts of the latter are biased by way of unreasonable devotion to the childish myth and cryptic biblical scripture of Christendom. The initial requisite for genius of any kind is an open and therefore unobstructed mind, as well as a receptive and thereby unprejudiced heart. All initiates, adepts, masters, and mystics in the past and the present were and are free from ideological chauvinism. Otherwise they would not have encountered the love, wisdom, truth essence within their beings, and therefore could not have had the enlightenment experience which fully liberated them from limitation due to ignorance. They have realized that the eternal truth soars on the wings of perpetual change and is the ground of the ephemeral verities upon which every religion is initially founded. In other words, none of the world's religions can lay claim to the whole truth and pretend that the holy book from which they preach is the complete word of God. Any person with an open mind and a receptive heart would have to ask, which God? Integral persons are integral persons and realized souls simply because they brook no control from any of these man-made ideologies, nor from any of the fabricated gods to which the masses adhere. As source-actualized human beings, and therefore cosmic individuations, all initiates, adepts, masters, and mystics give recognition to the solitary Godhead, which has no name and is without gender. The Godhead is the spirit of the living universe and the consciousness of the cosmos, which which pervades infinity for eternity. It is a primordial, evolutionary, impersonal, universal mind, which also substantiates all of form from the microcosm to the macrocosm. This single unified life force field of unlimited creative potential permeates every molecule which constitutes the human brain. The universal Godhead is therefore the indwelling spirit patron, which is the tutelary divinity and the solitary source of each singular genius. It is therefore true that every undamaged and untampered with human brain is without doubt the brain of potential genius. And the unlimited human potential is just that, once the person has reestablished the unrestricted individuality of a realized soul who is attuned to and at one with the indwelling Godhead. The creative wavelengths flowing from out of the everywhere present Godhead are the consciousness, reason, energy of the cosmos, which are the diversified spectrums of awareness that form the many phenomena with this one noumenon as the universal ground. So be it.